one reason why it's so important for agents to be making content is because it forces us to learn.
All right, guys, and we're back at this podcast, and this is Leverage by Virtudesk, episode 85, and we're talking to Chris Benyamein. Chris Benyamein, who went from being a lawyer to a real estate agent, and he's the only guy I knew who actually climbed Mount Everest, and I can't wait to talk to this guy. Chris, how are you doing? Excited to have you here today, my
Man,
man.
I'm excited to be here. Episode 85 is impressive. I hope I live up to the bio. I
Yeah,
appreciate you, Paul.
of course, of course. So, Chris, as I said in my intro, you used to be a lawyer and a criminal defense attorney, to be exact, and that's just amazing. So, you went from practicing law to being a real estate agent. So, could you tell me what moved you to make the transition, or what actually, inspired you to actually be in sales instead of actually going to courts and doing the court battles and dealing with the with the convicts or
Ab-
defendants, so to say?
alleged.
Alleged defendant. Well, they're defendants.
They are defendants. That's true.
There we go.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's a great question. So, really, the reason that I transitioned from law to real estate is because I think subconsciously I've always known that I was going to come into real estate because my family has been in this business for going on 35 years. So my mom has been a successful agent in Southern California since before I was born. My dad has been the broker running an escrow company. I've always been around the real estate industry. And when the opportunity came, which was really a result of me meeting my wife, I met my wife
Oh,
at the time, my
nice.
girlfriend. Yeah, she was graduating from medical school and moving to Southern California. And I was at a point in my career where I had just gotten a raise. I was starting to get pretty good at it. I kind of had to make the decision like, is now going to be the time to switch gears because I loved practicing law, but it wasn't really something that I had to do. You know, there was pieces that I
Yeah,
loved,
I
but it
get it.
wasn't necessarily my ultimate calling. And the big decision, one was meeting my partner and moving to Southern California, but two, it's not normal to have access to a really, really amazing mentor. It's not easy to get somebody
Hmm.
who's really willing to lean into you. And I had that opportunity with my parents. So I
Amazing.
think at that age,
You're
it was
lucky,
like
dude. Yeah,
blessed, man, blessed. So it doesn't always
definitely.
feel like that when there's struggles because, working with family can be challenging sometimes. But overall, it's like really rewarding. And the big motivation was you get to learn from the best, take advantage of that. And that was really
That's
what a
amazing,
big
dude. Seriously, that's amazing. And
thank
I can
you.
actually tell you that. I mean, as I told you before, I mean, I also went to law school, graduated, passed the bar, but I decided not to practice law because, again, when you practicing law, regardless what you do, you're dealing with negativities. You're basically dealing with people's not in a good times when they have. And when you sell real estate, you're basically dealing with positive because it's basically either acquiring a house or either selling house, moving on. It's a totally different vibe. So I can totally relate to that, dude. And also, Chris, like before we talk about real estate, your real estate career, I wanted to touch on something very interesting that triggered my interest.
Yeah.
You climb Mount Everest. You're the first person I talked to who actually did that. So you touched Mount Everest. So tell me about the journey. How long did it take you to train to actually do that? That's like the highest mountain in the world, right? So
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great question.
yeah,
I've been
Jamalungma.
climbing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been climbing for about 10 years. So I ended up at UNLV Law School, and that was kind of God's plan because Vegas, a lot of people don't know, is the mecca of rock climbing.
yeah.
So at 21 years old, I started really getting into rock climbing because I had visited Everest one time and said, I did a hike to base camp, and I said, one day I want to climb this mountain. And that was 21 years old. And little by little, I had just started climbing other peaks, smaller peaks, rock climbing, ice climbing,
Hmm.
all with the goal of one day climbing this mountain. So, as far as the training goes, I had been training for about 10 years, but
To
very,
climb
very
Mount
specific,
Everest.
all with the goals.
Or with the
So I
goal of
wasn't,
doing that. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't have like a training plan for 10 years, but I specifically was working towards Everest for about 24 months. The year
Wow.
before,
2 years
I was,
basically.
yeah, 2 years climbing other 6,000-meter peaks, training, and then about 1 year of uh, hyper disciplined focus for Everest. And then it took me, I think that was part of the question, it took me 2 months to climb it. I was gone from March till the end of May.
That's a lot of snow up there, right? During this time.
Yeah, so part of it's a glacier, so the whole thing is
Yeah.
covered in ice, a lot of snow, but really, really beautiful. I mean, there's a reason why places like Seattle or Southern California are
Mhm.
so busy. There's a reason why Mount Everest gets as many people trying to do it as it does.
A
It's
lot of people get
amazing.
killed doing it, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think because it's such an attraction, there's a lot of people that I don't think are equipped the right way, that don't really have the right experience or aren't hiring the right people to help them. So I'm very fortunate. My experience was nothing like that. I had a very positive one. I also identify as like a climber, as
Mhm.
opposed to just the goal of climbing Everest. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what
yeah.
I enjoy. But yeah, it's really sad. I think I saw 3 dead bodies.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, not easy. I don't have,
Well, man,
even as
you
expensive.
my hat is down to you, man, for you and respect, a lot of respect for doing this, man. This is an
Thank you.
amazing achievement, amazing milestone, definitely
Thank you.
on a lot of people's bucket list. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
doable.
I've
If
been
I
yeah, I've been following on your social media, and I noticed that your marketing game is right on point. On you, we're just gonna shift the gears a little bit towards the real estate and talk how
Sure.
you do it. So not a single dull post on your page, and I'd like to move into like and dive into that a little bit. The content marketing strategist. One of the few things that I noticed in your marketing style is that it has a personal touch to it. So, you basically what you do, you only post content not only informative, but also more about your personal life, about your personal experience. So, so I feel like the personal touch makes the content very entertaining and relatable a lot of people because they not only follow about the real estate houses, but they also follow about Chris Benjamin, and who
Right.
is Chris Benjamin? So um so do you have any tips for the real estate agents on how to make that type of content, or what do you think about, you know, how did you decide to come up with that kind of marketing strategy? So that'll be my question to you, basically.
Right. It's a great question, and it's one that's constantly a work in progress. So as much as I appreciate sort of the compliments, I don't have it figured out, and I don't think you ever have it fully figured out because it's constantly evolving based on what you think the people want. So I think my first piece of advice for anybody to try to make content similar to mine or just to make it their own is you have to be willing to do the work and see what happens. I think you have a lot of people that don't ever get started because they're trying to figure out how to make one piece of content perfect. But the problem with that is it prevents you from making progress. So you've probably heard the term you need to find your singing voice. You need to
Yeah,
find your voice.
yeah,
How do you find your voice, Pavel, if you never sing?
exactly. How do you do that?
And how do you do that? You
Yeah,
just have to sing and
you
see
have to
what
try it
comes
out.
out. Right.
Hmm.
So my videos, if you were to scroll back far enough on social media, you would see were not what they look like today. It was me holding a piece of paper talking at the camera. And I think because of my legal background, I've always felt more comfortable sharing information. I've always felt more safe giving some facts. And that's what I just developed over time. Nobody, let me say it like this, you could go on the internet yourself and find out what escrow means.
Of course.
I'm not creating a new definition of anything,
Hmm.
but what I'm giving the people is the way that escrow sounds out of my mouth. And that's what I really believe agents need to be focused on is you're building relationships with people, and the only way to build them is for them to get to know you personally. And I don't mean that you have to share personal photos, but what I mean is they need to get familiar with your face. They need to get
Yeah, who you
familiar
are.
with
Yeah, who's Chris? Exactly. They need to know who's Chris. So anytime they see Chris in the Starbucks line, they're gonna come up say, "Hey, Chris, you were the real estate guy, right? You who told us
right,
about escrow, about Mount Everest." You know?
right,
Yeah.
right.
By the way, I got a
So
house to sell, Chris.
that that's exactly right. So
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is you want them to get to know you because they can get the information anywhere. But my goal is for them to want to hear it from me. Kind of like the way that you get to pick between Fox and CNN. The
Yeah.
story's the same. Maybe there's a slight twist on it, but the
A
story
lot
is
of
the same.
twist in it.
Which broadcaster do you like listening to?
Yeah.
And
Don
that's
Lemon or
really my
Tucker Carlson. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's really the advice that I have, or really why I've been making it branded to myself, is
Mhm.
because that's the way that you build trust. And it's not easy, but it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Everybody would do it,
So
exactly. Besides the public nowadays, they're not really keen to doing their own research. They're used to. I mean, this is probably the curse of this generation. They like information being spoon fed to them through the phone, through the social media. That's the
right,
kind of that's today's society that we live in, whether you like it
right,
or hate it. But that's just the way it is. So
right.
society likes to be spoon fed the information, and your job is basically to do that how you want it to be done. You know?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And to add to that, one reason, if not the biggest reason outside of marketing, one reason why it's so important for agents to be making content is because it forces us to learn. I was creating content for my team because I thought I was helping them save time. And it was
Mhm.
an exercise that I was good at. I do the research, I write a script, and I give it to them. But what I quickly learned is by giving somebody a script, they might learn to deliver it, but they're not understanding the concepts because they don't need to invest time into it. So, for an agent to make content isn't just to market themselves, but it allows them to do the research, to understand what they want to make a video about, and then
Mhm.
create content that explains it to their audience. There's a reason why I know what the interest rate is today. There's a
Yeah, because
reason
you
why
do your own
I know,
research. Yeah, exactly. And you probably
and
do
I
it daily. You probably
you
check the
have
rates daily because they change daily, you
right,
know?
right,
Exactly. And a lot of people are in a panic right now. Buyers are in a panic. Sellers like very panicking because their homes don't sell. So obviously, there has to be a voice of reasoning, a voice of education, not just a voice of panic and fear mongering. Like that. I mean, we
right,
already have the mainstream media for that to fear
right.
monger people. We need to have the voice of reason, and that's what you're doing. And thank God, not a lot of people right now watch TV. Actually, a lot of especially younger generation, that's the only TV they have on their on in the
Right,
palm of their hands.
right.
So whatever you provide, that's what they're gonna go by, not what the Don Lemon or Tucker Carlson is telling them. So
It's very true. It's very
yeah,
true.
yeah, exactly. So do you think having a success narrative is essential to an effective real estate marketing strategy? Like, do you think like real estate agents should be focusing, okay, I sold that many homes, I'm doing that and that and that, more like success narrative, or it's better to have more like informative, what's more relevant to the consumer? I mean,
I
do you
think,
think people care how many homes the real estate agent sold?
you know, I can't tell you that I've ever had a consumer ask me, "How many houses have you sold?" I've never had that question explicitly asked to me. I have agents ask me that question,
Hmm.
but I've never had a buyer or seller. I think the method to be successful is to have a balance of all of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important for you to be around real estate, but I don't even think that means that you have to be selling it because the consumer is not watching that closely. So for, a buyer's agent that doesn't have a transaction open, or let's say a listing agent that doesn't have a listing, that doesn't mean that you can't create content inside a vacant house or
Hmm.
tour or preview a property, and
Make it very
nobody
appealing, basically. Yeah.
right, and nobody's watching that closely. That's
Yeah.
the thing about all of this is we believe that people are paying a lot more attention than they are, but all they see is Pavel inside a house, or all they
Yeah.
see is Chris inside a house. They don't know that's my listing. They don't know anything about
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
So I think the magic is in a balance of both.
So, can you give some tips on how to create appealing visuals for the social media? How agents can actually make it more appealing? What visuals they should put in their social media marketing? I mean,
Yeah,
picture in
I
front of
think
a
that
house is kind of boring. Picture inside a house is kind of boring. So,
right. Well, I think for one, the agent has to be inside the picture or inside the video. And I know
okay.
that's a hurdle that some people have a hard time overcoming just to begin with. So I think that's one thing that's always going to be more engaging is, and you see this, there's a handful of platforms, and I think agents moving this way is like they'll put a listing picture up there, but then they have themselves in it as well. I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think you want people to get familiar with you. So putting yourself in the content is
Hmm.
important. I think as far as visuals go, we are competing against beautiful women in bikinis. We are
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
are competing against like sports cars that like guys want to be looking at or girls want to be looking at. We're
Yeah.
competing against all of these things, Liver King, like buff guys, like we're competing against things that might seem more appealing than what real estate is. And our job in creating content is trying to find a way to be creative to get them to stop for
To
just a
actually
second
look and read. Yeah.
to look at it. So for a long time, I was getting stuck in the idea that how can I explain what escrow is in a creative way that's associated with escrow? And then one day I decided that doesn't matter. If I jump out of a trash can and it gets you to stop and listen to me, I don't care that it doesn't have to do with what an appraisal is, but now you're listening to me. So I
Hmm.
think we have to be cognizant that we're trying to catch people's attention, and it might not feel comfortable at first, but doing something that creates a way for people to slow down and see what you're doing.
That's
So
a very good point. Yeah.
yeah, and I think a big piece of that, Pavel, and this is a problem I think a lot of agents have, is they're insecure about the way they might sound, the way they might look, the way they might be perceived. And when you decide that the video you're making is not about you, but it's rather about the audience, then it's easier just to click publish and forget about the way that you look because it's not about you. And I don't think that's easy to get to, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it's a muscle that you're exercising. And I'm a human too. So it's like I want to
Everybody
look
is. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
exact. So like when somebody says something, I'm not immune from it hurting my feelings. However, I've been doing this long enough now that I've built a resiliency that when the video does bad, I just let it slide off my back. Or when I'm sweaty or shiny or like I'm wearing a wig and I look really silly, it's not about the way that I look or sound. Like Gary
You're
Vee,
basically competing for attention, and you want to get that attention so people can, look at this. Oh, what is this guy talking about? What does he have to say? And it's
right?
pretty interesting. Okay, let me just follow him and see what's up pops up, right?
Yeah. And I don't
So
think that means that everybody needs to jump out of a trash can. I'm not
yeah.
saying that you have to like make a skit, but you have to make it authentically you. And if you want it to perform better, I think you have to find a way to make it appealing to your audience, however
So let
that's
me
going to be.
ask you. So let me ask you a question then. I mean, knowing the ever-changing algorithms on social media and platforms, what is your process for optimizing your content to ensure that it has a higher reach, so more people it can be reached by it can actually reach more people? How do you make sure? How do you? What's the process of that? That's $1 million question for a lot of influencers and bloggers out there.
Yeah, that's a great
So
question. So I have these daily action steps. It's about 7 daily action steps that I take on social media that
Mhm.
help the posts reach further amounts of people. And it's a lot of work. I would guesstimate it probably takes about 45 minutes a day to do this.
Oh,
But
I bet.
in the world that the videos now need a little bit of a push, it's worth doing it. So, for example, before I post a video on social media, I will make sure to respond to all the messages in my inbox before I post it.
Mhm.
And the reason I do that is
Why is
because
that? Yeah.
it's priming the pump in the sense that Instagram
Mm.
favors direct messages. Instagram wants people to be having conversations. If I
In
send
DMs,
you a
right?
if I send you a message, Pavel, my
Uh-huh.
video is going to come up in your feed first.
Interesting.
Think about who you have the most DMs with
Mhm.
and think about if you see their videos more or less. I mean, for me, it's pretty obvious. Like the people that I engage with are the ones that are popping up in my feed the most. So that's a little tip. Before you post something, respond to all the DMs that you might
All the
have.
DMs, yeah.
Another easy tactic would be making sure that you respond to all the comments from the day before or anything that you might have missed. Excuse
Mhm.
me. Anything
No
that you
worries, yeah.
might have missed. My back.
Yeah,
So
you're good, yeah.
respond to anything that you might have missed in the comments the day before or 2 days before because it encourages the algorithm to put your stuff in front of those people again.
Mhm.
Another small tip would be, did you know that you can sort between the chronological order of your feed? So when you're on Instagram today, you'll see a post from 2 days ago. You'll see a post from today. You'll see a post
Yeah.
from 6 hours ago.
Mhm.
It didn't used to be that way. It used to be in the order in which people were posting, right?
Yeah.
You can do that now. If you go to the Instagram like logo in the top left
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
corner,
Uh-huh.
yeah, if you select that, it's going to put it in chronological order. Spend 5 minutes after you post your content or right before you post your content and engage with the people that have just posted because they're still on the app and they're going to see yours
So
immediately.
basically
And
put comments on their posts or, send them a DMs or whatever, basically, because that's what Instagram loves. They love their algorithm loves direct engagement. So that's for
correct,
organic reach, basically.
right.
And yeah,
So it's a lot of work, but
I'm sure it
if
is.
you
Yeah.
if you make a really dynamic post
Hmm.
and you just post it and you leave the app and you just forget about it, it's not going to do as well as if you keep the app open for 10 minutes and comment on people's posts so that you can be ready to respond immediately to when somebody leaves a comment on your post.
Got it.
That first 20, 30 minutes of your
Hmm.
post are really important to be engaging with the comments. So like one little tip that I would give to people that is is really helpful is if you work with a team, or let's use Virtudesk for example.
Yeah.
If everyone on Virtudesk has an Instagram, every time Pavel posts something, why doesn't the whole team go onto your post immediately and leave comments? And then you respond to those comments. And then all of a sudden, like I'm in a team of 7 every day, and it's not like that every day, but the goal is every day all 7 people leave a comment on that team member's photo, and then if I respond, we're at 14 off the top.
Hmm.
14 comments is more than most are getting, right? And
Yeah.
that's just with your team. So think about that. If you have a mega team,
We
that's a
do.
lot
Yeah.
of
We have a huge team. Yeah.
so, and it's a rule of reciprocity. When you
Rule of
post
reciprocity.
yours,
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll do it for you. When I post mine, you do it for me. And you create these audiences, you create these families. If you were to jump into my content, you're going to see comments from a lot of the same people. It's like a
Yeah. Which
tribe.
is fine. Yeah. Yeah.
It, it,
Exactly.
it, it
It's
supports the
it's
algorithm.
organic. It's organic content. It's basically it's not bots. It's real people,
No,
and
it's real
Instagram
people.
loves that. Exactly, exactly.
Right.
That's
So
a
I hope
really
that's
good point.
helpful.
Yeah. Oh, it is absolutely because a lot of real estate agents are listening to this podcast. They're gonna hear this, and that's a really good helpful tip from
Thank you.
from the guy who's doing it. You know,
Thanks.
so let's talk about. I mean, I know you're using some virtual assistants as well. So being a Virtudesk CEO, I cannot not ask this question. And it takes a village to to grow the content. I know that. So how many people you use currently as on your content generation and the production? Do you use anybody, or you just do it yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do carry a lot of the burden. I think I do that by choice. I think I do that because I could probably use um, spending the time in
Oh,
figuring
that's the
out a way.
lawyer. That's the lawyer talking to you, bro. I can recognize that. I used to have that thought as well. Nobody can do it better than me. I know
It's
exactly that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
and it's not the way to grow.
Yeah.
So I think you do need support. What I would say, or one way that I have people helping me right now, is with one of my team members, is specifically in distribution. So this is a hack that I think people can benefit from. Is once I create a piece of content, I'll go put that piece of content in a Dropbox folder.
Uh-huh.
I will label it the day in which it was posted. So today is November 17th. If you were to go to my content folder on Dropbox, it would say Chris, November
Yeah.
17th. And then that tells them that that's the post that they're going to share that day. Separately, I have a Google Doc that has a calendar with each caption. So my team member is responsible for taking that piece of content that I shared on Instagram. I'm doing it personally on Instagram because
Hmm.
I want to engage with people and it's the one that I enjoy the most. But then they will take it and post it on Facebook personal, Facebook business, YouTube. If you're not posting as a YouTube short, you're really missing an opportunity. They'll post it on TikTok. They'll post it on LinkedIn. It gets posted every
Everywhere.
single day on Google My Business. If you're not posting
Hmm.
on Google My Business, that's a
Yeah,
big
you have to.
opportunity.
You
And
have
then
to.
finally,
Yeah.
it's on my website as a blog. That process will take an hour plus every day, but it's easy to create a small system to pass it off to someone like a virtual assistant or to
Yeah.
somebody on the team. But that distribution is massive because it takes time to make the content, and if you don't put in the effort to get it everywhere, you're just not squeezing the most out of everything you're doing. And 2022 coming into 2023, it's important to make sure that you're getting the most out of everything that you're doing.
That's good stuff. Chris, I have a
Thanks.
few final questions for to you, and one of
Please.
the questions that I usually ask all the podcast attendees is, what would you recommend to agents who just got into the business within the last couple of years, comparing to what happens right now is totally different what they have experienced before. So if they got into the business in 2020, 2021, it's totally different ball game now. What are your recommendations to those guys?
Right. I think my recommendation to any agent just getting into the business is two pieces. Number one, I don't want to elaborate too much on. Find a mentor, find a team, find somebody that wants to
Get a
invest
coach.
something into you. Get a coach, exactly. Somebody
Yeah.
that has done it before to help you avoid the hurdles that everybody's always making. The second piece of advice that I would get the second piece of advice that I would give is you need to commit to three things every single day that move the needle forward. So, number one would be putting on the calendar when you are prospecting. Very simply,
You
when
gotta
are
do it.
you going to spend the time to reach out and hunt? Number two, when are you putting on the calendar education? When are you learning about the RPA? When are you learning about contingencies? When are you learning what you need to learn to really give value to people? Because how are you an expert? How are you the professional if you don't know this stuff? And I think that's a big disconnect between agents that have been very successful and agents that think they know how to be successful because excuse me,
You're good.
it hit, when shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
you need to know what's happening in the transaction. And the last piece is spending time every single day focused on your marketing and your business, getting out of doing the work but rather focusing on how can I grow this for 2023, 2024. What I mean by that is, are you making social media content that's going to live forever online? Or do you want to build a farm and you've never spent the time to look at what neighborhoods have the highest turnover rate? That activity is an important one, but that does not substitute the importance of having to get on the phone and set appointments. And I think
Exactly.
the biggest thing with new agents is like, I'm my own boss. I'm my own boss. I'm free. But freedom comes at
Free
a
from
real
what? Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
too much freedom,
Free from money?
it's challenging because people
Yeah.
like the reason why people don't succeed is because they don't have bumpers on
Yeah.
what they're doing. And I
Self-discipline, of course. Yeah.
it really is. So I would say
Yeah.
find a mentor and then put on your calendar when you're prospecting, when you're learning, when you're working on your business.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Chris,
Hey,
I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. We don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, but I wish I could talk to you more. But tell us how people can find you on social media, how they can look you up, your content, and how they can find who is Chris Benjamin is.
absolutely. So I'm at Chris Benyamein just about everywhere. Instagram is where I'm the most active. So if you send me a DM, I will definitely respond to you. You can give me a call. My phone number is on my bio and Instagram. If you want some weekly tips, I have an email in my bio. So sign up for that and I'd be happy to share it with you. But I'm an open book. So reach out to me and like, my heart is in this. I really want to help people. I really believe it comes full circle. And yeah, at Chris Benjamin, I'd love to have a conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm just sending you a DM right now.
Yeah, I just sent you one the
Yeah.
other day. I started following each other, so I'm excited to keep the
Yep.
conversation going.
Yep.
Oh, I just saw it. You're the man.
Awesome, awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks. This is was a Chris Benjamin, guys. Look him up. He's got amazing content and follow him, give him a follow, give him a send him a DM. Just tell him what's up, you know. And Chris, thanks for coming on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank
So
you, brother.
hope to see you at the Tom Ferry events. We're gonna
Yeah,
be at Summit. We're gonna be at the lead retreat in February. So I hope to
I
see you
will
there.
be there. Sounds
Yeah,
great. Thank
awesome.
you.
All right. Thank you.